Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to unravel a crazy 30-year medical mystery. It's a story that proves exactly why statistical adjustment isn't always the magical cleansing process we tend to think it is. Actually, sometimes it's a massive trap.
Okay, let's dive right in. Picture a young epidemiologist back in the early 1970s, right? They're staring at huge data sets of birth records, zeroing in specifically on low birth weight babies. Now, they stratify this data by maternal smoking, fully expecting, and logically so, that the babies of smokers would fare much worse. But no way! The data said something totally different. It showed that among low birth weight babies, the infants of smoking mothers actually had a lower mortality rate than the babies of non-smokers. I mean, it literally looked like cigarettes were acting as some kind of neonatal vitamin. You'd be calling the Surgeon General immediately to report this, right?
To solve this statistical crime scene today, here's our agenda. We'll look at the birth weight paradox itself, unpack the clues, unmask the illusion of protection, enter the world of DAGs, look beyond birth weight into modern medicine, and finally, explore why data just cannot speak alone. Let's get to it.
Starting off with Section 1, the birth weight paradox, a 1970s statistical mystery.
So, setting the scene in 1971, a really sharp Berkeley biostatistician named Jacob Yerushalmi stumbled onto a deeply counterintuitive anomaly. Now, clinically speaking, low birth weight is defined as anything under 2,500 grams. And because babies falling under this specific threshold are at a much higher risk of mortality, researchers understandably focused all their attention right there. They wanted to know what caused it. Smoking was a primary suspect, mainly because it was already known to shift birth weights down by about 200 to 250 grams.
But here is where the data completely flips on its head. In the overall population, the numbers are unambiguous. Smoking is absolutely harmful, and smokers' babies have higher mortality, period. But when you move down to just that low birth weight stratum, when you only look at the babies under that 2,500 gram mark, the mortality rates flip. The data falsely suggests smoking actually provides a protective effect for these specific babies. And seriously, for 30 years, this paradox sat in the medical literature like an unexploded bomb. People literally built elaborate biological theories around it. They were talking about things like carbon monoxide-inducing hypoxic preconditioning, desperately trying to explain something that wasn't actually biological at all.
Which brings us to Section 2, unpacking the clues. 2 roads to low birth weight.
To understand how a whole generation of brilliant researchers got completely fooled, we have to look a bit closer at what birth weight actually represents. See, there are 2 main roads to becoming a low birth weight baby. On one hand, you have prematurity. The baby is born too early. They might be perfectly proportioned, but they basically just got evicted before the lease was up. On the other hand, we have fetal growth restriction. This is where the baby goes to full term but just doesn't grow properly, and that's due to factors like smoking, severe placental disease, or serious congenital anomalies. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that the underlying reason a baby is small matters infinitely more than the smallness itself. Some causes are just mild nudges, while others are totally catastrophic.
Moving right along to Section 3, the illusion of protection. How the filter creates a phantom.
By filtering that dataset specifically for low birth weight, those 1970s researchers inadvertently set a massive trap for themselves. They stumbled headfirst into collider bias. This is a spurious or entirely fake statistical association that gets created when you condition on or restrict your sample to a variable that's caused by 2 or more other variables. It's honestly one of the most underappreciated ideas in all of statistics, and it literally creates phantom links between things that have absolutely nothing to do with each other out in the real world.
This whole concept is way easier to grasp if we use something we all instinctively understand, like Hollywood actors. Imagine talent and looks are completely independent, random traits in the general population, okay? You either get one, the other, both, or neither. But to become a famous Hollywood star, you generally need at least one of those 2 things, incredible talent or incredible looks. Now, if you filter your sample to only look at famous Hollywood stars, you might start noticing that the highly talented actors aren't always the best looking, and the incredibly good-looking ones don't really need to be all that talented. By conditioning on stardom, you create a phantom negative correlation. You might falsely conclude that beauty somehow causes a lack of talent, but you're just being fooled by an elite filter, exactly like those researchers were fooled by the low birth weight filter.
Let's keep going. Section 4. Enter the DAGs, mapping the geometry of cause and effect.
It actually took a full-blown revolution in causal inference from incredible methodologists like Judea Pearl and Miguel Hernan to finally give us the mathematical tools to see through this trick.
Enter the directed acyclic graph, or DAG for short. It's a visual picture made of nodes and arrows. Each node represents a variable, and each arrow represents a hypothesized direct causal effect. It's directed because causes always precede effects, and acyclic because there are no loops. This is exactly how modern data scientists map out causes and effects before they even think about writing a single line of code.
So let's look at how this birth weight trap built up step by step. Step 1. Maternal smoking causes low birth weight. Step 2. Unmeasured severe diseases, like chromosomal abnormalities, also cause it. Now, when we stratify by restricting our view to just small babies, that's step 3, we accidentally open a phantom backdoor path. Think about it. If a small baby's mother didn't smoke, there absolutely must be another, likely much worse, reason for their tiny size. The non-smoking group artificially fills up with much sicker infants. Smoking didn't magically gain superpowers, the non-smoking group just lost its healthy members.
Now we arrive at Section 5, Beyond Birth Weight, Collider Bias in the Real World.
Listen, this isn't just some quirky historical anecdote about obstetrics. This exact same logic is actively distorting data across the globe today. We see it in the obesity paradox, where obesity miraculously appears protective in heart failure patients. Why? Because to be a normal weight heart failure patient, you often have a much more aggressive wasting disease. We see ICU admission paradoxes. We see survivorship bias with WWI bombers, where they initially armored the returning planes exactly where the surviving bullet holes were. And we even saw it in early COVID-19 anomalies, where young people seemed way more at risk in hospital data. Hospitalization itself is a collider. Hospital-based selection bias is literally a serial killer of data.
And the stakes today? They are incredibly high. Machine learning models trained on massive observational health datasets can easily entrench and deploy these exact collider biases at scale. AI algorithms are constantly hungry for data, and if they're fed datasets packed with these hidden statistical illusions, they will completely confuse predictive performance with actual causal validity. They literally memorize the bias and scale it up right into clinical decision support systems and precision medicine, creating completely fictitious treatment effect subgroups. It's wild.
Which brings us to our final part. Section 6. Data cannot speak alone. The solutions and the philosophy.
So how do we actually rescue our observational research from these paradoxes? Well, the cures involve a pretty rigorous checklist. Step 1, you always draw the DAG to map your causal assumptions first. Step 2, explicitly define your estimand, meaning the exact causal contrast you're trying to estimate. Step 3, emulate a hypothetical randomized target trial to surface any implicit errors in your observational design. And finally, Step 4, use modern G methods to handle complex, time-varying confounding. Basically, we have to make absolutely sure we're using causal thinking, not just statistical thinking.
This leads us directly to the overarching lesson of this entire explainer. Data do not speak for themselves. It's such a powerful philosophical reminder. Data are mute, they are passive. They just sit there in tables, waiting for someone to interpret them. The math in those 1970s birth weight studies, it was entirely flawless. The mortality rates were tabulated perfectly. But if your underlying model of how the world works is structurally wrong, the data will confidently, mathematically mislead you.
And I'll leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. What else are your data hiding from you? As we increasingly rely on massive data sets in literally every single industry, from electronic health records to financial claims to massive AI modeling, we really have to ask ourselves, if brilliant, top-tier scientists were completely fooled by birth weights for 30 entire years, what phantom paths are currently hiding inside your spreadsheets? Until next time, keep drawing those DAGs and keep questioning your assumptions.